Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I actually want to talk about pharmacies because pharmacies are where we go, here in the United States, and that would be pretty much everybody in the United States has to go to a pharmacy at one point or the other. We are going there constantly to fill medications, prescriptions, all these different kinds of things, and by virtue of that, they are collecting an absolute ton of data on us, and it's not secure and it's not private, even though we have laws regarding that. Now, there's a really good write-up on this by Drew Harwell of the Washington Post. And in a previous segment, I basically talked about 23andMe and their data privacy issues and how essentially we have genetic privacy acts here in the United States, specifically GINA, GINA, from 2008 under the Obama administration. But there are loopholes in that law, and there have been pushes to weaken those loopholes. And so the 23andMe's are not basically keeping your genetic data as private or as secure as you think they are. I think that's a very important issue. But pharmacies are somewhere we all go. Not everybody, only millions of us have spit into a tube and sent it in to 23andMe. But every single person in the United States in one way, shape, or form has, like I said, gone to a pharmacy. And so with that, let's dive into this because the nation's largest pharmacy chains have handed over Americans' prescription records to police and government investigators without a warrant. Now, this is according to a congressional investigation, and obviously this raises concerns about the threats to our medical privacy. Now, some of the chains actually do require their lawyers to review law enforcement requests. Three of the largest, CVS, Kroger, and Rite Aid, with a combined 60,000 locations across the United States, said that they allow their pharmacy staff members to hand over customer medical records actually in the store, meaning no review. The police show up without a warrant, possibly a subpoena, and they are getting this information directly from the pharmacy. Now, the policy essentially was revealed in a letter that was sent this past Monday to Javier Becerra. He is the secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, which holds HIPAA. Okay, now HIPAA is obviously those laws that protect us here, and that letter was sent by Senators Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, and Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat of Washington, and Sarah Jacobs, Democrat of California. Now, if you are a longtime listener or follower of mine, you know that I think that Ron Wyden is doing the cyber lord's work when it comes to our data privacy. And honestly, I wish more senators, I don't care what side you're on, more senators would follow his lead when it came to our privacy, which I think is a constitutional right that just hasn't kept up. Now, the members began investigating this practice after the Supreme Court's decision last year in Dobbs v. Jackson. Obviously, that is essentially the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. And by virtue of that, states, across the nation have now been enacting their own abortion bans or codifying and enshrining abortion in their constitutions, et cetera, et cetera. We are now a hodgepodge of abortion or no abortion states, and that obviously is a whole other debate. But by virtue of that, privacy becomes an issue, especially for those women that need reproductive rights. I am not adjudicating that. I do not care what your side of the fence is on that, but that's essentially the backdrop for why this was being investigated. Now, this revelation, though, could shape the debate over America's expectations of what privacy is, as basically, as I mentioned, Texas and other states are looking to criminalize abortion and obviously the drugs related to reproductive health. These are the drugs you would get at a pharmacy. Now, pharmacies' records hold some of the most intimate details of our personal lives. I mean, years old medical conditions, prescriptions, everything. You're taking, something for mental health like Prozac or antipsychotics or whatever, birth control, et cetera, et cetera. We're all buying these at pharmacies. And because these chains share records across locations, meaning across state lines, a pharmacy in one state can access a person's medical history from other states. I know, like if I'm sitting here in Chicago and I fly to Los Angeles or New York and I walk into Walgreens or CVS or whatever it is, they're going to have all of my medical history, my insurance information, because it's all centralized. But think about that, let's say, woman, and we recently had a case of that in Texas, where she left the state to basically have that done. And if that is, let's say, requires a pharmacy visit for, let's say, medications afterwards to help her in some way, shape, or form, now the state of Texas can subpoena the Walgreens, the Rite Aid, the CVS in that state and retrieve those records from out of state. That's what we're talking about here. And with that, let's talk about HIPAA and how it really doesn't protect us so much, because the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, regulates how health information is used and exchanged among quote-unquote covered entities. Now, covered entities are things like hospitals and doctors' offices, but the law gives pharmacies a bit of leeway to what legal standard they require before they disclose medical records to law enforcement. Now, in briefings, officials met with 8 American pharmacy giants, and we're talking about the big ones: Walgreens, Boots, CVS, Walmart, Rite Aid, Kroger, Cigna, Optum, and Amazon. And they told congressional investigators that they required only a subpoena, not a warrant, to share those records. And now here's the difference. A subpoena can be issued by a government agency, and unlike a court order or a warrant, it does not require a judge's approval, meaning nobody is adjudicating this, and a law enforcement agency or another entity can unilaterally issue a subpoena without having it adjudicated. There's no let's debate this. Now, to obtain a warrant, law enforcement, as I said, must convince a judge that the information is vital to investigate a crime. Subpoena does not have that rigorous standard. And so the 8 pharmacy giants told congressional investigators that they collectively receive tens of thousands of these legal demands every single year, and most of them were connected with civil lawsuits. But it is not clear how many were related to law enforcement demands or how many of these requests were actually fulfilled. Now, one of the companies, Amazon specifically, and this is amazing to me, said that it notified customers when law enforcement demanded their pharmacy records, unless there was a legal prohibition like a gag order preventing them from doing so. So if you were ordering from Amazon and let's say your records got subpoenaed in some way, shape, or form, Amazon's letting you know, hey, the feds came in, law enforcement came in looking at this kind of stuff, unless, again, there's a judge order that says by law you can't do that, because let's say you're caught up in a criminal investigation and that would give away the game. So Americans can request for the record that the companies tell them if they've ever disclosed their data under a HIPAA accounting or disclosure rule, but nobody really knows that you can do that, so very few people do. CVS, which has more than 40,000 pharmacists and 10,000 stores in the United States, said it received a single-digit number worth of these customer requests. And so part of this is the loophole that the law is essentially allowing these pharmacists and pharmacies to hand over data. Part of it is the legal framework that they are dictating. Remember, Kroger, Rite Aid, and CVS are simply just allowing their pharmacists to do this without any kind of legal review. But HIPAA also is not fully protecting our personal health information. And if you are going to a pharmacist to receive any kind of medication, I don't care if it's prescribed aspirin, that should be protected information. They don't need to know anything unless a judge deems it worthy. If there is some kind of, partisan witch hunt against me, if you will, and they can unilaterally subpoena my medical records or my pharmacy records, I think that's a big problem. And I would hope you do too. And so by virtue of that, we need to strengthen these laws, whether it's the genetic information laws, for DNA and the 23andMe's of the world, whether it's our pharmacy laws. These loopholes are going to be exploited in the same way law enforcement has been exploiting location finding on cell phones without warrants for years. The laws need to catch up to the technology. And when the technology is centralized, that means that somebody that is traveling from one state where, let's say, reproductive rights are restricted to another state, that state, because all of them are centralized and they go to that pharmacy, those records are shot right back into that other state where they can be criminally prosecuted in one state, but completely allowed in another. And this is the disparity that we are seeing. So I think we need to really clean this up and focus on this. Again, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are on or what you believe. This is a serious problem because it affects everybody, reproductive rights or not, including me if I get a prescription as well, because law enforcement doesn't need to know that unless a judge says that's legal because I'm caught up in something. Who knows? So there you go. I'll leave it at that. And that is your unfortunate news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, just please, please, please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.